Welcome back to Heal and Learn. We are just going through all the applied channel theory systems right now. We've gone through Tai Yin, Tai Yang, we've started learning how to build a truss, and now today's video is about the Tai Yang system. This is going to be one of the longest meridians. We got the UB and the small intestine, so we're going to go through the individual functions of the UB and the small intestine along with what the functions of Tai Yang do. Okay, so here we go. The primary metabolism of Tai Yang is going to be separation of clear from turbid and maintaining the fluids. And typically, separating clear from turbid, we immediately think of small intestine, but we're also needing to expand that and be thinking about the UB. And now we've also had the large intestine doing that and the lungs doing that. So we're seeing that multiple meridians are able to separate clear from turbid. So I know we just like hound that in, that's a small intestine thing, but in the true bigger picture of everything, other organs and channels are using this function. So when we talk about the Tai Yang, we know that this is going to be starting from our eyes and then wrapping around the nape of our neck, all the way down through our spine and then onto our feet. That's the foot Tai Yang. And so with that being said, we know that the wind gate is on the back of our neck, and we can use a lot of different UB points to be helping clear wind along with the dew meridians. With that all being shown and talked about, we now have this picture to also talk about where is the Tai Yang laying? Where on our body? Because on our arms we also have different modalities happening. So this first picture is showing on our skin how in between the skin and the muscle, they're calling it interstices. It's like the interstitial space between the skin and the muscle. And in between that space is going to be where the cold invasion from the exterior is. And so some textbooks call this the coulis. Okay, so the coulis is this space that's being filled with temperature regulating properties and fluid to keep you warm. And so we know that our body has fluids throughout the whole system, and it's not necessarily blood, because blood would be within the blood vessels. It is just lubricants to help the fascia move and everything to be able to ride and glide freely. Again, talking about the wind gate, that is why and where the UB is going to be laying, and not just the UB but the Tai Yang. In the 6 meridian theory, this is again the big 6 circles, and you go Tai Yang and you work your way in to Jue Yin. The outermost circle is going to be Tai Yang, and what this theory is the outermost circle would be affected first, and then as you work your way in and Jue Yin is last, then Jue Yin, once that circle has been affected, then that's the separation of yin and yang, which is death. Okay, and so at the end of all of this, all 6 of these circles need to be depleted, and then you would pass away. So in that same theory is this theory that Tai Yang is this very superficial energy that's able to protect us. So remember how we have all the different warmth and cold, dry, damp. Well, with Tai Yang, this is going to be our cold. And so it's damaged by cold because this is the most yang system. So with this being the most yang, it likes to feel the warmth. And so again, that is why we wear the scarves, to keep our neck and our Tai Yang warm and to prevent the damage of cold. So Tai Yang is going to be opening the most to the exterior. It's the most exterior of the channels, and it's the first line of defense against external conditions. Again, with that coulis, or that space, that interstitial space, that is where the Tai Yang is lying to keep everything warm and protective. Within the Tai Yang channel, you can have excess conditions or deficiency. So when it comes to excess, remember the 2 metabolisms of the Tai Yang is separation of clear from turbid and maintaining the fluids. So as we talk through the interstices spaces, that is a way of maintaining the fluids. So when we now are talking about the excess, maintaining the fluids could be urinary disorders, problems with sweating, and it could either be excess or deficient sweat or excess and deficient urine. It really just depends on how this is manifesting, but these things can be affected. You can also have a deficiency Tai Yang, and what that would look like is sensitivity to cold extremities, and difficulty controlling your bladder or the dribbling. So again, this could look like yang deficiency problems, because Tai Yang is the most yang meridian. It wants to be warm, and so when it's very cold, the Tai Yang is deficient. Okay, so when we are comparing Tai Yin and Tai Yang, it can start to feel pretty similar. Remember in the Tai Yin videos, we talk about the interstitial bath of the oxygen covering the blood vessels, so it's allowing everything to form, and that is where we're getting the separation of clear from turbid from the lungs, is the CO2 is being removed, and that's the turbid, while it's also adding in the oxygen from the air. And then all of that goes into the blood, and then the blood is supplying this oxygen throughout all the cells. That's our applied channel theory version, but it also supported through Western medicine. Well, this is going to be very similar, but a little bit different through the Tai Yang. So with the Tai Yang, the Tai Yang is providing the movement to and dispersion within the interface of the body and the external environment of the cellular bath. Okay, so again, Tai Yang is touching every part of our body, but at this very superficial level, and it's just providing the movement and dispersion. Versus Tai Yin, what they are doing is they're regulating the dampness and the nutritive level. So air and food is coming in, and then allowing the body to either spread the oxygen or the nutrients of the food to then heal and be supplied to every cell in the body through the interstitial bath. Versus Tai Yang is the movement to get everywhere. So you could say that the Tai Yang is a lazy river, and it's the movement of a lazy river, and you're transporting and traveling through space and through the body. And then the Tai Yin is going to be the nutritive aspect or the healing aspect to the person on the tube. So if I'm a person on a tube traveling through my lazy river, I'm being healed through the sunlight and having fun and relaxing. And so the Tai Yin is all of this nutritive aspect, and then the Tai Yang is the movement. Fun little analogy. Just made that up. So starting with the hand Tai Yang, which again in channel theory, we're trying to just be thinking about our little brackets. Our hand Tai Yang would be our small intestine, versus our foot Tai Yang would be our UB. Obviously it sounds so easy, but just getting used to talking in this language, it helps you understand more and more on how to build that trust. The number one function that the small intestine does is it separates clear from turbid. And in applied channel terms, we're going to go a little bit deeper. Typically, we would just say it's removing the fluid from the waste. So removing the fluid from your stool, and then it's expelling the stool, right? But with this, we're going a little bit deeper, and so we're going to say it's a stopping point for assimilation and modification. Now, all the turbid is going to be separated out by the small intestine, and it's not all going to be transferred as waste. Classically, we can understand that the heavier turbid materials are used in the production of thick body fluids, such as glandular secretions, such as bile, and then there's also other thoughts of not only like bile, but hormones and all the movement of everything, which is also why the Kuli is able to change your hormones when you're getting sick or fighting an infection. Immediately the body responds, because the Tai Yang is the most exterior to the body, and so it is quickly able to change the proper glandular secretions to help you remove the infection. So if we're looking and like we're thinking about like what is actually happening in our body, we're taking in air, we're taking in food, and those two together create the gu qi. And then the gu qi is going to our stomach, like we're eating food into our mouth, going into the stomach. Then the stomach would start to break things down, ferment it, and be able to move it through. And then Chinese medicine, it goes from the stomach to the spleen. The spleen refines it and gives us nutritive qi. The nutritive qi creates energy to build and clean the blood, interstitial baths, because it's able to bring the oxygen and the nutritive qi to the blood. And then from there, the spleen's job, you would think, is done. And let's just say it's done to that point. And then what happens with the rest of the food, if the spleen could not use it, is the spleen sends it to the small intestine. The small intestine refines it more and sends it either to the bladder, and the bladder will refine it. And then if the bladder is able to refine anything and say, whoa, 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 we missed something, it sends it back to the spleen, or the bladder just pees it out and it's true turbid and it leaves the body. The small intestine, if it sees that it's truly turbid, then it just sends it to the large intestine. The large intestine does the final formation and then sends the waste out as stool. So that's how it has a few options to be back to the spleen if the bladder or the small intestine say, hey, you actually missed something, just check this again. And it goes back. So staying on the hand Tai Yang over here, so we have it's extracting and providing essential substances to Tai Yin, which that's how the little system goes. And then it also is transforming the red to maintain the blood. The book of Applied Channel Theory in Chinese Medicine by Wang Juyi, Lectures on Channel Therapeutics, it doesn't really describe what red means. It is blood, and this is how you can start to see the interconnection of internal and external pairs of small intestine and heart, of how the red connects the two. And so really what this is going to be is substances are being filtered out and processed and integrated within Tai Yin. So this is helping with iron digestion and absorption, and then within all the blood, it's being sent into the blood vessels to the heart, and then the heart is moving it all. Here's a little mind map about the hand Tai Yang, and we already talked about it, but take a screenshot and it's super useful. Now focusing on the foot Tai Yang. Again, our two functions of Tai Yang in general are going to be maintaining the fluids and separating clear from turbid. When you think of maintaining the fluids within foot Tai Yang, you typically just think about it as the bladder filling up with urine, and that's maintaining the fluids. So looking at our notes, it's storing the fluid. It is addressing both waste fluids and the quality of healthy fluids. So not just limited to the storage and discharge of urine, but to all fluids reserved throughout the body. So this goes back to the glandular function of the small intestine, making these thick, turbid fluids into glandulars. So, the small intestine is crossing at the eyes. So is this our oil of our eyes, the sebum of the eyes? It's crossing our ears. Could this also play a role in ear drainage? Urinary bladder Tai Yang is also involved with the qi transformation and function, is associated with sending the beneficial fluids upwards and outwards. So again, it needs to be able to go to our coolie, which is in between our skin and our muscle. And this area needs to be filled with fluids to be able to warm our body and keep us regulated. Okay, and all that is sourced through the Shao Yin fire. So when you think about where these fluids of Tai Yang are coming from. This is in our lower jiao, so the lower part of our body, our abdomen, and it's also maintaining the largest area of our body. So again, everywhere we have our skin and our muscles, that is where the Tai Yang is working to maintain these fluids. Um, it also secretes and differentiates the clear and the turbid. So filters fluids to maintain net functional volume of clear and turbid. Turbid expelled as urine, clear dispersed in the interstitial areas. Okay, great. There's our mind map. We went through all of that. And then here is another. Taeyong is such an important channel that it's probably underutilized, but once you really start to think about how it could be affecting anywhere on the skin, it could be affecting our sweat, it could be affecting our innards of how the movement of that lazy river is moving to get nutritive chi everywhere. You can start to like think about it in a lot of different ways of how you could be using it. So I will show you guys soon a balance of Tai Yin and Tai Yang, because that can now be a trust through system 1 of branching name. And remember, branching name is Tai Yin or Tai Yang. And so this is going to be a trust right here. So I'll show that, and we'll keep on moving along slowly but surely.